welcome to the June 2025 meeting of the Wildfire Safety Advocates. We're on Zoom. Hello, people on Zoom. And as a reminder, the camera's over there, Bob, behind them. And then we have another one up here, but the one that people can see is up there. And we're recording, and I'll put this video up for the next couple of days. So just a reminder about that. Hello to you two people as well. So we've got a few things on our agenda, and the very first one that we want to talk about is the status of the funding and design for planning of a dedicated second arterial highway for Waikōloa Village. And so I'm assuming probably everybody in this room saw the news that we were publicizing online a couple of weeks ago. But just to reiterate real quickly, and for anyone that has not seen this yet, it's very exciting. The county budget passed with an amendment for $2.5 million for engineering and design work for a second road that passed like a week and a half ago. I know it hasn't been fully signed and finalized through yet, and there's a little bit more complications here, obviously. The money is not physically in the bank yet, and it's going to take a little while to get going. We're going to ask David Bruno for a finalized update on that exact calendar. But it's exciting that a government agency, a government entity has finally written down on paper that this is a priority and they're committed to the project. And that alone is a huge start. Doesn't mean that the road's getting built next week. Doesn't mean that bulldozers are showing up anytime soon, but it does mean that the ball is rolling. And that is a big deal.
We got over, for community support, over 80 testifiers in support of the passing of the amendment, and 5 or 6 people who testified either in person or via Zoom, and it passed 7-1.
Yes.
Really great.
Yes, which is awesome because it demonstrates that all of the council members from all of the districts on the island, with the exception of one, are supportive of this. And even the one that didn't vote for it, he specifically said, hey, the community, we support you guys. This is a big deal. It's important. He was voting against the process, not against the actual amendment. It's very important to say. They all see us and they all know this is an important thing that's going on. At the same time that's going on. So this $2.5 million that it's sort of there, but not really there. It isn't physically there, but it's written down that they are planning to find the money, I guess is the best way to say that. The county is still pursuing another option still, right? So the county is still pursuing, the administration side of the county is still pursuing a community facilities district, a CFD with the developers. We were originally told that was going to be in the tune of $25 million. Now it's $50 million. And what that basically means is that the county is planning on taking out a bond for the full cost of the entire road, lending that money to the developers, and then they'll pay back the bond through the sales price of the houses that they're going to be building up there over the course of however much time. That process is going to take 6 to 12 months to implement and get the money in the bank if that actually goes through. But once it does come through, we have been told directly that it will include a firm timeline and that it'll have money in the bank. And that's what we want. We want money and we want to bring down how long this is going to take. And hopefully that goes through. So yeah, that's the top level stuff. Bob, do you want to add anything to that description of what's going on, or do you feel like that's sufficient?
Well, I think what's important for people to recognize, and David's going to fill in more of this, is that the critical piece for the funding district is to have the developers agree to it.
Yes.
And that has not happened yet.
Right.
So this is the county's proposal to the developers. It's the concept that the county would prefer to use to fund the project. But that doesn't mean that this is a done deal. And the developers, if they agree to this package, we need their signature on paper saying that they will repay this debt. And we need a clear timeline in the project documents to show that it's going to move forward within a time frame that gets the project to open to traffic while we're all still alive. So those things are not yet resolved. And we want to make sure that we continue to keep the pressure on. And I think what was really important was the fact that the community showed up with so many voices, the fact that we had 84 people coming forward and testifying was really critical in terms of getting the vote that we got, 7-1 vote, was because the community did make it clear that this was a high priority for all of us, that there were no negative voices. And it shows that democracy works when we make it work. But the other
one negative, but that's.
But you know, I forget what the other point was I wanted to make. It was one other thing that's critical. I may remember it right now. It's escaping me.
I clearly, I apologize, Bob. You read your train of thought. Oh, David, could you fill us in on the schedule and what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, just in a little more, some of it's more general and doesn't have specific dates, but some of it's. We talked about it, super, but being a little more pragmatic about it. So what was approved was the county council approved the amendment put forth by James, who's just our council district member. And that to add that amendment to the budget. And then the budget last week, they went through the second final reading, that budget was approved. With that amendment, there's some other amendments that were added to it. So the county approved that budget with those amendments on it. That budget is now, and I don't know if it's specifically been delivered back to the mayor, but it is now goes back to the mayor. And sometime in the next week to 10 days, this is the indefinite part of it. The mayor then, does his duty, which is, consider it. Best case, he signs the budget, and it's best case for us specifically on this issue of the design and the engineering design to get this going and that money. But it also includes everything else and all the other amendments that were put on the budget by the different council members. The mayor also has the opportunity to veto the budget or veto line items on the budget. If he does any of those, and the indications I understand, and I pinned James down, was trying to have general conversations and making sure I understand the time frame. If he vetoes any of that, then it comes back to council. Council has, depending on when that happens, could be up to 10 days or within 10 days, but to consider what they want to do. Do they want to push back? Do they want to try to override it based on their vote and put it back on the budget? Ultimately, the time frame comes down to, sometime in the next, 23 days, because the 1st of July is, the budget has to be in place by charter, the 1st of July. So all of this potential back and forth happens between now and then. And the 10 days is usually when if the mayor vetoes, the council has 10 days to consider to do it. So that's, backs it up a little bit when the mayor's supposed to sign. Hopefully it's signed and then none of that becomes an issue, but that's the reality of, people's excitement about it and just understanding that if, there's something were to happen when the mayor did decide to mix it, then, that comes back to the council for them to address it, but.
So one way or the other, though, by our July meeting, we'll know what's happened.
Yes.
We're ready to face or we're still.
Yeah.
And if the council does need to override a veto, we will need to call on the community again. We will need to show up again. There will be another opportunity to testify. And one of the points that we made at the last hearing was that we are not asking any other community on the island to help pay for this. We pointed out that since this project first ended up in our community development plan in 2008, the Waikōloa area has paid roughly $350 million taxes to the county. And then 200 of that went to the operating budget, and about 150 went to the capital improvement budget. We have not received $150 million worth of capital improvements in this community. And we pay roughly now, with all the recent development, $25 million a year in taxes from Waikōloa. Now that's the village and the beach. So this community pays in 1 year the cost of the project, cost of the road. So what we're saying to the county is, we want you to spend our taxes to protect our community And we are not asking any other community on the island to protect us. We want you to spend our money here.
Hopefully that happens.
If we need to go back to another hearing or override veto, that's a point that we want to emphasize again.
Very good.
Can I ask something about?
Yes, please.
You described it as a second arterial highway, and I've been confused.
Yes.
It seems to me in some proposals, the second road is just an evacuation
Yes.
road. This sounds like this would be a full-time road, 2 lanes, I mean, 2.
That's our goal. Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. Yes, we are insisting on a 2-lane road that fire trucks can drive up while we can drive down. And it's very important that this would come out of the north end of the village, because the Pulico Fire Station is down there. And so the purpose of that is to cut off a significant amount of time to come up. The problem, we have Hulu right now that already exists as an evacuation road. And last May, when the governor and the mayor and all sorts of other people were out at the ground blessing event, they were announcing a 1-lane evacuation road, very similar to Hulu once again. And yes, that would be appreciated. Yes, we love the fact that we have Hulu. It's just not enough. And so we want to make sure that there isn't a half measure where they just do that and then sit on it for another 20 years and then never get a full second road on it. That's why we're being very particular with our language. The second dedicated arterial highway means it's an arterial road, means it connects to the highway down below. Highway is the 2-lane road definition, and dedicated means that it's open to the public 24 hours. So
Okay,
it's a gate on
great.
it. That we're seeking, yes, yeah.
And it's important to remember that this is not a new proposal that we're making. We're asking that 2-lane road, which is in the plan for the village since 2008, be funded and built. That was the plan that the county put together for the village, recognizing that as growth happened here, we needed another arterial highway. So this is not a new idea. It's not something that we've ginned up at the last minute saying, no, we want a 2-lane road. That's been in the plan for 17 years.
Yes, Dave.
And just one quick point of clarification, during the groundbreaking, when the mayor, governor, et cetera, were there, it was not a current mayor.
Yes.
There, it was the previous mayor.
Also wasn't our current council member, it was the
Correct.
previous council member, but it is our current governor, and it is a few other people that are current there, but yeah, that was when they. I appreciate the clarification.
Any other questions on the funding or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not to be pessimistic,
Please.
but if it does not go through for some reason, I think we had talked, or I had mentioned to you guys that Pete Hoffman was a real proponent of Chapter 32 special improvements financing by community facilities district.
Well, that's what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's what the mayor is still pursuing, that
Okay.
specific thing. And more power to them if it goes through, but it's just
I
for
know.
20 years, right? So
Yeah,
like,
we
we
just
just gotta
gotta-
keep on taking every angle, every path forward and not letting it slow down. And I- Yes,
One question, where does the money come from?
yeah, great question. Yeah, this is all county.
Council members on the Zoom, does he want to answer the?
Does James, would you like to address this or do you want us to just talk about it? See if he's listening.
Yeah, specifically about the CFD or?
Well, the question was like, where's the money gonna come from in general? So I think a good conversation would be the different parts of the state responsibility, different parts of the county responsibility, what the amendment does, what bonds are, the CFD, just sort of like the sources of the money, I think is what you're getting at, right? But yeah, thank you.
Sure. So what is in the amendment lists two different things. It lists $2.5 million, and that is targeted with county bonds. So that's kind of the mechanism. Just for clarification, most things that sit on the capital improvement project list, the CIP, the capital budget, like 80% of them pull funds from bonds, like county floated bonds. Sometimes there's other funding, sometimes we find state or federal dollars, or one of those mechanisms could be a CFD or an improvement district is another option. So those are the two there, where the community actually a certain percentage or a flat fare or whatnot. Now, so what it lists right now is a county initiated bond. And it also shows the $1.6 million that was more or less committed by our state legislator, Representative Tarnas, as well as Director Sniffen with HDOT, Department of Transportation. But that one is from a state CIP list. So they kind of have their own and different mechanisms how they fund things as well. So like Matt was saying, it's not confirmed that the dollars are there, but it is appropriated, saying that this is an item that the community sees as a priority, as well as the council sees as a priority, given the votes that were carried out over the past few weeks. Yeah. So that kind of touches on some of those things. Did you need me to talk a little about the CFD or anything like that?
If you want to, or I could talk about it, whichever you prefer. Or do we understand what a CFD is? Does anyone have questions about CFD still?
What's the activity?
Community Facilities District. And it's basically a special tax just on a small area for a specific thing. So for us, it would be building a second road, and the tax would come out of the sales of new homes in Nanakai area. They did this recently down in Kona to build the water, is it a water treatment plant or the sewer? I don't remember what it was. But
Yeah.
they did, James, do you know?
Yeah, that one is probably for the sewer. There've been ones in the past for potable water systems, but that kind of is run through the Department of Water Supply, and they kind of have their own entity. But yeah, the CFD, it's chapter 32 in the county code, if you want to dive into that. But it's basically a special tax that's levied on community. It has to have the community support, and it is, basically voted on by council. So sometimes they usually speak to a developer and they need some additional funds for a large scale infrastructure project, and it is a tax levied on within that area. Sometimes it carries across other parcels and property. Just for a side note, having that conversation with the Poolco community right now, with regards to sewer, wastewater improvements in that area. So kind of working through that right now with them, and kind of interested to see where that goes. Yeah, and kind of the partnership there. But it's a special tax levy. So there's also an improvement district is another mechanism of funding, and that's kind of like a flat fee that's kind of across all the parcels and all the TMKs, versus a CFD could be percentage based upon tax valuation of properties. So that's something that could be considered and looked at through that process. And that's something we're looking at with the Poolco community, because there's a variation in valuation of properties there based on age of homes, or those different valuations, as a lot of you know in that area. Yeah, so that's kind of in a nutshell there.
Thank
And one last thing to add to that, I guess, is that almost certainly all of the monies are going to come from one entity here. So for example, the intersection is almost certainly going to be paid for by the state, because the Queen K is a state highway. So that's where this 1.6 million for the intersection from the state came from, is that they're going to deal with that part of it. Hopefully we're going to have some sort of public-private partnership with multiple, like the developer will kick in a bunch of money, the CFP might happen. The other thing to keep in mind, just ran out of my brain. We're losing it today, guys. Oh, okay. So last October, Bob and I flew over to Honolulu and had a meeting with Ed Snippen, the state director of the Department of Transportation. And he told us that if we showed up with an alignment and a firm cost estimate, basically a really good map and exactly approximately how much the whole thing is going to cost, he would help us find federal and state grants to help pay for the rest of it, right? And so there's a world in which the feds kick in a certain amount of money, the state kicks in a certain amount of money, the county kicks in a certain amount of money, and the developers kick in a certain amount of money. How much that total is, we won't know until it's shovel ready. So that's what this 2.5 million is for, is to make it shovel ready, so that then we can go find these other funds and all of that stuff. So, does that make sense? Is that cool?
And Matt, if I may,
Yes,
that's the one of the main reasons that with your support and bringing this amendment was imperative, because those funds that Representative Tarnas and Director Sniffen spoke to and were committed to, they put on the shelf for the time being because they didn't really see the county stepping up to the plate with regards to these conversations. So yes, those conversations are, the mayor's having conversations with the private landowners, and those are ongoing. But I think there's a multi-pronged approach we could apply here. So they're doing that, but if we have this in the budget and we have this as like a candid conversation and a talking piece with all these things and begin to fund it and begin the work, I mean, it really shows a prioritization that the state says, okay, the county is willing to do this and wants to do this, and they see it as a imperative for community that we will kokua and come together on these things. So that's part of the process as well.
It's all about leveraging the one fund to another fund to another. If we get some money, someone's supposed to do this. So that's what we're working on. And now we have we sort of have our first one. We're not quite there. We're close. Sort of have.
And it wouldn't be happening without James.
Yes, thank you.
In that position, and we need to thank him as a community for providing the leadership that has got us this far.
Yes. Many, many, many thanks, James.
Hopefully you got some thank you emails. Try to get people to.
I did, and I just want to, thank you here on the call. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. But the receiving positive testimony on issues is always enlightening and always like uplifting. Sometimes all the negative testimony can be down. So it's very nice to have the group, have positive testimony on things that, yes, you see this is a benefit for community. This is something we're fighting for. So I just want to thank you as community members for stepping forward, engaging with your neighbors, encouraging them to send in testimony, and really asking for support. So thank you as well.
Thank you. Okay, move on to the next agenda item. Let's do it. Okay, so next one, literally last Monday, the state hired a new fire marshal. Finally, it's been a long time coming, about 2 years since they passed the bill, a year and a half since they passed the bill, something like that. And so that's her. She's in now. It's a woman named Dory Booth, Miss Dory Booth, who used to be the fire chief at Sedona, Arizona. And she sits on a bunch of boards for fire code nationally. So she's gonna be really awesome. I'm excited about it. And literally last night I got her email address. So I emailed her this morning and requested a meeting, and hopefully that's gonna be set up very soon. So we're very excited about that, and we're gonna see where that all leads.
She brings a lot to the table.
Yeah.
She has a lot of experience. She's also a 20-year veteran. So she's certainly got the chops.
Deployed multiple times. And if you read her description, the things that she was doing when she was deployed was doing community infrastructure projects. So we might not be, Afghanistan here, but I think that she probably learned a lot from there about how to work with the community to build a road. So let's
I'd love to invite her to come to Waikōloa, come to one of our meetings, meet with the community.
I already invited to give her a tour if she's the next time she's on the island. So don't worry, we're gonna try and be friends. I promise you. She's gonna be aware of Waikōloa one way or the other.
Does Sedona have a lot of wildfires?
Is that?
Does Sedona have a lot of wildfires?
No idea.
These sister cities.
Yeah.
Yeah, right,
I'm just saying.
Not sure.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, they had a major fire in 2019.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, well, not cool that happened, but good that we have the reference and that we have a connection there, and we will. Hopefully, we will have updates and more to come on that, but that's a big deal that.
Yeah.
The next thing that happened that was interesting is we've been monitoring the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, pretty closely, especially as it relates to HECO and the water service. And about a week ago, HECO filed a new document at the PUC related to their wildfire safety strategy that was a very specific document, which I was very excited about because it literally had pictures of all the power lines and it listed out what their mitigation strategy for it was for the next year, how much it was going to cost, and it had pictures of like Waikōloa and the map and everything. So we're very excited about that. We've got a lot of questions though still. So we're continuing to work with Life of the Land to have them advocate for us as well and learn from them. So we're gonna have some answers for some of the questions, but one big thing that came out of it is that they say within the document that HECO is expanding their staffing operations to have a new division at HECO, which is going to be their wildfire safety division with 13 employees in it. Yeah. So, and it lists in the document what all of their titles are. There's gonna be some inspectors, there's a lot of stuff in there. So, that's pretty exciting. They're continuing to take it seriously, and we're gonna continue talking to them, and growing on that. But, you know, add anything about, was it?
I was just want to share what some of your questions are that you have about the document, the strategy.
Sure, we don't understand their terminology. So it calls the power lines the Waikōloa 12-8200 underbuild specs. We don't know what that means. So we're asking them about that. They also said that we don't have an egress ingress problem. And I already clarified that a little bit. And it's apparently it's not an egress ingress problem if power lines don't cross the road. But the Waikōloa 12 lines do cross the Waikōloa road. So we're trying to get them to clarify that situation. Another one that was on there is that they said in this document that they were gonna, the mitigation strategy for the power lines just right next to the village is covered conductor. But in the one that they released back in January, it said that those lines were not eligible for covered conductor. So there's some disconnect there, so we're trying to find some clarifications on that. It's all technical stuff that we're asking at this point, just more information specifics, but yeah, that was interesting. So that's out there, and I did read the document, and I don't think anyone else will. Yes.
So this is statewide across all around here, right?
Yeah,
13 employees get distributed.
Yes, and I believe they're gonna be in Oahu. It sounds like they're, you know, office staff and everything, and I think there's a vice president, I believe, is that right? So there's gonna be stuff there. I don't believe most of them are field workers. A couple of them might be inspectors or something, or assessors, but I believe most of them are like strategists and analysts and stuff. But still, it's pretty exciting.
Well, it ties into the next item. on the
Yeah, I'm gonna go turn to.
Which is the water system. There's two issues involved with the HECO system. One is whether or not they will take the action to prevent their lines from igniting a fire, which is what happened in mine. You know, their line broke in the wind and ignited the fires that ultimately did all the damage. So that was the source of the deal that was struck with those who had claims against the state and against HECO and others and the county as part of that $4 billion settlement that went to court and the Supreme Court finally signed off. And that now has led to the state legislature passing a securitization bill in this session, in which the legislature has said we're going to let the PUC put a cap on the liability of HECO for damage to communities and landowners and homeowners, so that HECO is guaranteed that they're not going to go bankrupt. But the problem with that is, of course, that the exact shape that cap will take is yet to be defined by the PUC, and the governor ultimately has to sign off on it. But the basic idea is that for 10 years, that cap would be the limit on HECO's liability for damage done by their lines igniting a fire. So that is a problem if, for example, the first fire happens in year 1 or 2 on Oahu or Maui, and the entire cap is used up. And then in year 3, their line right here next to the village starts to fire, and we get nothing. So that is an issue I have serious concerns about the way it's structured. we may need to ask the legislature to revisit that, but in the meantime, all the action is in front of the PUC. The PUC has to define what HECO must do in order to qualify for this liability cap. So the PUC proceeding is the critical point of focus at the moment. And from our perspective as a community, we have two concerns. One is whether or not that their line, Mauka from the village will break and ignite a fire. And if we get a fire started right next to the village, on that main power line that runs right in through backyards on the Mauka side of the village, you know, there's no stopping that fire. There's no time for fire crews to get here to even protect us. So that's a major issue. It's how do we make sure that line doesn't ignite a fire. But then there's another issue, and that is that all of our water to the village and to the beaches here comes from a water system that is powered by HECO. So if the power line is cut off for whatever reason, either because HECO cuts it off, you know, currently their only strategy for protecting communities is to shut off the power to their line. So if their line breaks, it doesn't start a fire. So it's a dead line. That's what they call the PSPS, power system shut off device. That's the only strategy they have in the books right now for preventing a fire. Shut off the power. But if they shut off the power, they shut off the pumps up at Hawaii Water System. So Hawaii Water System, and I just did a tour up there 3 weeks ago to look at their system and to understand what happens if HECO shuts off the power. They normally deliver water from 8 wells to us. And that amounts to about 6.8 million gallons a day. But they only have 4 wells that could operate if the power gets shut off. And they would operate those with generators that they have on site. Those are diesel powered generators, and they have enough diesel fuel on site to run those generators for 48 hours. So at the end of 48 hours, we're out of water, unless they can get resupplied with the diesel. But, you know, the diesel comes from the tanks over there at Hilo Harbor. And one of the things that the fire chief, when he was here, when he warned us about, is if we have a major tsunami, those tanks get wiped out. So we could well be in a situation where, in a case of a tsunami, for weeks afterwards, there's no electricity. Because HECO can't get the energy it needs to run its power plants. And the wells would shut down because they can't get the diesel they would need to back up HECO when the power line goes out. So this is a major concern for us, both in case of fire or some other catastrophe that blocks the diesel fuel from being delivered to the island or delivered on the island. You know, like if we have, you know, a major hurricane that washes out the roads, you know, could easily wash out a section of the roads coming over from Hilo. So there's a lot of scenarios there that could result in the power being cut off to our wells. So what I've and in the fire scenario, this is another piece of it. And what we saw in Lahaina was that the winds blew hard for about 6 to 8 hours. During those 6 to 8 hours is when most of the fire damage was done, but not all of them. So the fire continued to burn after the winds died down because the fire trucks couldn't get in. You know, the road was blocked. So that's another scenario here. We want to make sure that we continue to have water after the winds died down. Because the fires would still be burning. And it would, the only way the fire department could help protect the portion of the village that hadn't yet been burned would be to have water in the lines. But if the diesel runs out at the end of 48 hours, we could very well be in a situation where the fire department needs water to continue fighting the fire and we don't have any power to pump the water. So anyway, well, that's the scenario we're concerned about, and that's an issue that also is before the PUC as part of the fire mitigation plan that the water company has submitted, along with HECO having submitted its fire mitigation plan. So the two of these need to be looked at together, and that's something that we're trying to do here to figure out what we would ask the PUC to do. And one of the scenarios that might be a solution to this would be to have our water system do what the county has done. You know, the county has 8 wells farther north, which serve everywhere from Manalani north on the beach up through Mauna Kea and Waiha. Those 8 wells are powered by the 5 windmills that we see up on the mountain from here. And that's a system that could continue to operate and generate power on site, no matter where the energy might be blocked elsewhere. You know, if the grid shuts down or the diesel is not deliverable, having that kind of a system on our wells for the village could be a safeguard, you know, a security measure to guarantee that we can continue to deliver water into the community, whether it's for fire or even just for domestic use in case of emergency. So that's something I'm starting to investigate, and from what I've seen so far, the county claims that they reduced the rates for water users served by those wells by $1 million a year by generating power on site instead of buying it from HECO. So that is an issue that we might want to present to the PUC as part of the reasoning behind asking our water system to put in on-site wind generation to power their pumps. But anyway, this sounds complicated, it is,
Yes.
but it's something that we're investigating.
Yeah.
You had a question over, yes?
One of the things that I was just gonna ask is when you meet with those people that are putting their team employees on. Would that be a really good time to explain this? Cause when I work for the utility company, they're able to. Switch lines or stop a line, so they can keep the line going to the water place. And shut the rest of the stuff off, so it's called switching and they.
Sure, yeah.
The line, so I'm just wondering if they know about this and these 13 people are gonna start.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. The way
But
that
problem is,
PSPS works.
if they shut down power in a red flag situation to protect themselves from liability for starting the fire, there's no line that's activated that they can deliver power.
Yeah, they'll shut them all down. Actually, can we
But they could still keep the line that's running to the water supply places, I mean.
Well, this is the lines right here.
This line runs right next.
Yeah, so watch this right here is the south well site. It's that road that we're looking at right there is the one where the yellow gate is if you're driving Malka Waikōloa Road. And those lines that are going vertical through the screen right there, those are the lines that go and feed. You can see up in the middle of our screen up there, there's 2 big tanks. Those are the storage tanks right here.
This is the well field,
Yeah.
and they have 2 storage tanks linked to those, and at 2 of these wells, they have diesel generators.
So the way that the PSPS program is set up is it's a regional thing. Maybe that's possible, right? But
Underground, maybe?
well, we want them undergrounded, but that's gonna cost $11 million a mile to underground lines, yeah. But the challenge is if we left these lines on during a high wind event, you'll see I turn in a moment right there. You see on the left side of the screen right there, there's a bunch of like Kiaves, that green little patch right there. There's a line through the middle of it. That's what the power lines run through. And so like we're still maintaining the same risk profile, and in fact, I'd say it's a little bit higher of a risk profile since it's right next to the wells. If the fire starts right there and we lose half of our water supply instantly.
Right.
That like, so okay, here we go, you can see, I sort of pan over, and you can, Bob, step back.
This is a generator right here.
Obviously, you're blocking, so you're like blocking half of We can look at this, very good.
We can back up a little.
And that's,
It's going
that
there.
road is the road that the diesel trucks come in on. resupply.
the Chiave.
That's the Chiave, and then down below, you can see the road that they use for access, and then you can see the storage up there. And then you see the actual wells, those are wells. This is coming back down the hill then. Okay, no, this now is coming down the hill, right? Oh, no, this is the north side, sorry, I'm confused. This is the north side right now. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Something. This is almost at the far north end of the village, basically just Malka of Nanakai. And this is going straight up, and it's another 4 well sites and 2 more tanks of storage, but it's the same problem.
Wait, where's Nanakai?
Nanakai's behind us right now.
Behind,
We're going
That's
up,
where I'm standing.
okay.
yeah, and we're going Malka up towards Mauna Kea right there. Can you actually skip forward a little bit, just like.
And then over here
That
is
is
the-
the.
is the county
No.
wells and.
Comico is to the-
5 windmills that power those. wells.
That might be Comico Gulch, actually, that actually might be, let me look on my map, now that you're saying that.
Well, on the far right? Okay.
Yeah, on the right, because I think it does like a little S turn thing. Well,
Got it.
it's definitely
That
a
is
golf.
Gulch. That's Comico Gulch.
Is it a major gulch or what?
It is Comical Gulch?
Yeah, it is,
Yes,
yes,
that's
it is, yes, 100% it is, yeah. Yeah,
So their north field is on the north side of the gulch.
yeah. And
Is this the goat guy that?
no, the goat guy's closer to Waikōloa Road, but
Oh, look,
that's a separate note. I did get all of the grazing contracts, so we're gonna be looking at those. That's not.
So one question on
Yes.
going back from when we met, when they were first introducing the PSPS program here, and they had a meeting with. So I'm not saying you guys actually talk, if you know more about it, but my understanding was that to what you had asked, the PSPS can be, somewhat. Regionalized or area, it's not like if they say, hey, we've got this, that they shut down everything and it affects everything that's in this area, they can say, hey, the main danger is here, wherever here might be.
Yeah.
Shut that off, and it might or might not affect the wells. I mean,
Totally.
So it isn't that, the one thing is, if they claim a PSPS, it isn't that all power everywhere has gone out, it's in a designated area where they.
Yeah, but I don't know how small those designated areas are, right? So I don't know if it's like Waikōloa, Waimea, or if it's like North I don't know where they're switching.
What we do know
It's
is that
It was the last.
if they shut off the 69,000 volt line that runs right along the village boundary. That will shut off the power to the wells, because these 2 lines that run to the wells are off of that line.
Yeah,
So they have identified that line, that 69 kV line, as the highest risk line in their whole system on the island. So from that standpoint, that is the one that they're most likely to shut down because of the risk.
Yeah, I just know when we were having the conversation was, and we were saying they can't notify. People individually like your pal, but it could be that, one area of the village is out and another part of the village, just like the other night. Power outage in the village and around, but it didn't affect everybody apparently.
I think there's a map though, Hawaii, I know we did with power, not Hawaii, but there's a Hawaii, isn't there a Hawaiian Electric PSPS regional map?
but it's
But I don't
really
think that
granting
breaks
there.
down, they have to say,
Why?
and again, I think
Yeah.
that's the thing, they're not gonna either commit to us. And maybe, of saying, hey, if we have a PSPS, again, it's generally known as a PSPS.
Yeah,
But it isn't like, hey, it's PSPS, just, region 1 or region 2, but they made it seem like, at least in that public
I mean-
meeting, that they could.
So
Regionalize the way they shut it down.
that would be my
So-
vote too, it sounds to me
But-
for PSPS that it's just like. The first solution that they came up with in the post Lahaina reality, and there are probably opportunities to fine tune it, but it's a conversation we can just try to.
So
kickstart.
HECO didn't invent PSPS, this is the thing from California, right? So they copied it off of someone else. And I don't think that we're gonna get an answer to this question right now. However, if you look ahead, upcoming event, mark your calendar, the Community Resilience Fair
Lovely segue.
is happening, and HECO there will be a panel up there. And I assume there will be a HECO representative at the panel, is that correct? Is there going to be a HECO rep, or we aren't sure yet?
I can name the panel.
Oh, please, please.
Oh, yes.
So
Demons. Demons.
Hawaii County Civil Defense, Hawaii Energy, Hawaii Fire, Hawaii Police, Hawaii Wildfire Management, Hawaii Water, Hawaiian Electric, Waikōloa Training, PTA, Team Rubicon, WVA, Wildfire Safety Advocates of Waikōloa, and Fire. So those are the people who are doing the panel and or tables of information during the event. And the event basically is from 4 to 7. From 4 to 5, there's an open house. From 5 to 6, there's a community conversation, and that will be led by Councilmember Hustis, who is hosting the event along with HECO. And then 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., everybody will be able to go back to the open house again. And yes, Hawaiian Electric will do a presentation on their new wildfire safety strategy.
Perfect. So, I can't promise that they'll answer your question, but that's the place to ask the question for sure. We can ask it there too.
Yeah.
I would think you wanna get it Friday with those 13 employees that are going in, so that way when this does happen and it does cause a big problem, we're right in line for the money, because we brought it to their attention. It's just my.
Fair enough. I do like things in writing, trust me.
Well, it's in the minutes somewhere, that
I'll get back to your situation, all these situations. Are you presenting that to the PUC? I know, as an example, in Pennsylvania, PUC's tremendously powerful. I mean, they just control everything that's going on. Not sure it is so much the case here in Hawaii, but these scenarios, are you confident that the PUC understands all these things, or are you doing that, or is somebody else helping you? Seriously.
We are still trying to decide what role we want to play or can play in front of the PUC. We do know that the commission has just been given this authority by the legislature, even though it's only this month that bill has been. I don't even know that the governor signed it yet. He may not have signed it yet.
I don't think he has.
I don't think he has. So the bill even hasn't gone into effect yet. But as soon as it does, it puts PUC on the hot seat. So the amount of authority that it gives to the PUC is really broad. And so from that standpoint, it gives the authority the authority to the commission to do a lot, but what their willingness to do is a whole other story. And so we're trying to figure out, do we focus more on trying to keep the HECO power available for the community during a fire event, which would mean undergrounding the lines to make sure that they remain operable and reliable sources of energy during a critical event? Or do we kind of recognize that may not happen because of the cost, in which case we would focus more on the water system and trying to get PUC to push the water system in the direction of doing what the county has done with their wells, so that they're generating power on site and then become less dependent or totally independent of the grid. You know, that then make sure that we would have a reliable water source even if the grid goes down. And the grid can go down for many reasons. You know, we talk about the PS system as HECO shutting down the grid, which is one way it can go down, but it can go down because the fire burns the poles. You know, the poles, all the poles that you see in that video are wooden poles. And when the fire comes through, that line is coming down. And if enough of those poles burn, if it's more than one or two, it's a big job to put that line back up. And that's probably weeks in the making. And so if the power is not available for that reason, to the wells, we don't have water for weeks. You know, that's the issue here.
The gravity feed from those tanks.
From the tanks,
Yes,
but the
the
tanks are
tanks-
gravity fed, but they'll only have like 6 million gallons or something like that.
No, they have 14 hours water.
So
That's as long as they can deliver water.
get back to you real got to answer your question about the PUC very specifically, whether we are intervening or not yet. The answer is no, we are not intervening yet, but I personally want to. It's just a capacity thing for us, honestly, at this point in time. And I can imagine once the road is in a more stable position, that might be a place where we focus a little bit more.
It's not only capacity.
I think a lot of it's capacity, but we'll get to that later.
Under this convention.
But it also changes the way that we can talk to or not talk to certain entities. Right now, we're just an independent advocacy group, and we can have informal conversations with people like the team at the Hawaii Water Service, but
Yeah,
once
but-
you begin to officially engage with the PUC, you can't really have those conversations.
Yeah, but you can also then force them to formally answer questions.
Right, but then you can
on
ask-
the
get
record,
them to-
right, so like it is a give and take there, we can't do ex parte conversations, but we could submit requests for information that they are required to answer. Right now, like we've got a good relationship with them, I can call them up and we can talk and whatever, but none of it's written down and none of it's formal and contractual, whereas if we send it through the PUC, it would go in front of the commissioners and they would look at it. So no, we have not intervened yet, but we are almost certain that if we do attempt to intervene, that we would be granted intervener status as a legitimate organization. You don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be admitted to the bar to intervene, so that's not really a problem for us. It is a time thing, there are a few strategic issues to it, but there's one other nonprofit in the state that is very active with the PUC. It's this group called Life of the Land. And they're led by an individual named Henry Curtis. I mean, we've had many conversations. And we're helping him, guide him on the interventions and questions that he's still doing it on his own and everything, but we're talking to him and he's learning a lot from us and we're it's been a productive partnership for
But there's also a public advocate who is assigned to the PUC, who is supposed to represent public interests. And I've spoken with the director of the public advocate once, briefly. He invited us to have a more detailed conversation. That is yet to happen, but it will happen soon. And we will ask him whether or not he can represent the positions that we would like to take. And if either Henry Curtis or the public advocate are willing to press forward on the positions that we think are important for the village, I don't think we would need to intervene, and we probably wouldn't even try. But if we can't get an assurance from either one of them that they would carry forward with our position on some of these issues, which is yet to be defined.
Yeah.
Then we would consider more seriously need to.
So we have one more question and then I think we should keep moving.
Long-term intervention is a goal. Actually, I keep.
Kendra had her hand.
Yes.
Are we going back to the HECO event?
That's what's next.
Right back.
Yeah, I'd like to segue into that upcoming event, and then I also included confirmed that we saw meeting speakers as well, just to share who we have confirmed coming up. But yes, can we talk about the Hawaiian Electric event?
Yes, we can. I know if James were here, he would say how proud he is to have put this together for the Waikōloa community. So we're very pleased to bring that, and especially in conjunction with HECO and 12 county departments that will be represented there, where people will have the opportunity to ask questions, speak to directors, deputy directors, et cetera, from those departments. This is a very important event for the community. It's a rare opportunity that we can get all these people in one place at one time and have the community be hands-on, so to speak, with them. So I think it's critically important that we push this as hard as we can within the community. We'll be hanging up a banner, hopefully by next Monday, at the entrance to the village. The flyer will be ready to go out on Friday. With the listing of all the information, et cetera. And I think this panel discussion that James is going to be having with county leaders about preparedness in all forms, but of course emphasis on wildfire safety for our area specifically, is a critical one. So I would ask everybody in this room to push as hard as you did on testifying for the amendment. To get community people here to take part in this. If we have a good showing from the community, then it can be an event that we can count on annually, that we can continue to add to. It was very successful when HECO did it down in Kona, very successful when they did it in North Kohala. And now we have the opportunity to, thanks to James and HECO, bring it to the Waikōloa community. So I would ask for everyone's help in encouraging people to attend this. I think it's an outstanding opportunity. Thank you.
Kendra, what does success mean? Does it mean that we got HECO to actually do something?
I would say success in this case, rather than getting in that discussion. I think success in this case was the people felt informed. They felt that they got to ask questions. They could pick up materials to help them with emergency preparedness, because emergency preparedness goes beyond just wildfire. And I feel like both communities turned out with a good attendance for their first events to participate and show these various departments, et cetera. Because again, it's not all about HECO. Water, energy, everyone else will be there as well. So that's what I would say success is in this particular event. I wouldn't be the person to answer whether or not that developed into HECO doings.
I think anytime we can be out in the community and sort of bridge the gap is a really good opportunity. So I'm excited that WSAW has a seat at the table for this.
Oh, for sure.
We're really pumped.
The question is, you know, what we want to use that table for. Normally,
Yeah.
when we show up at markets or we showed up at KTA, we were advocating for something. And that's in our name. We are advocates.
Yeah.
And what would we be advocating for at this event? That is where, you know, my thinking is going.
Yeah.
How do we use this opportunity to educate people for an outcome that we want?
Yeah. I
That's-
think educated is the word that I have in my mind. Just we get so many people who, even though we've been doing this for not even a year and a half now, who just come up to us and say, yeah, we need a second road. What's going on with it? And just honestly starting them at the beginning and answering that question, because for as much as we try to get out on social media and next door and everywhere, there are people in this community who have no idea that we exist. So it's just awareness of who we are and then educating them on the status of the project for the second road, but also sort of because we as a group, we have the second road as a focus, but we also want general community safety for wildfires, right? We're also talking about fuel breaks and power lines and the water service, right? So we have a lot that we can talk to people about. So I think it's just a conversation in light of not having any testimony that we'll likely need at the time or anything like that. I think it's more of we're gonna have a popcorn machine wheel. We just want to be able to have people come up and talk story with us. And
I'll be handing out 3D printed keychains.
And I think education is the key here. That's really what we want to bring to the community in this particular event. What do I do if fire comes? What happens to my water if the electric goes off? All of these questions that people can actually go to a table with the directors, deputy directors of these departments, et cetera, and ask those questions. And I think that's the critical point. I think WSAW is very involved in this event. You, as a group, certainly in starting these community conversations and co-sponsoring those with Councilmember Eustace. This one, Matt will sit on the panel, which James, of course, will be moderating. There'll be specific questions that, of course, will come out to the group that people at that table will be able to speak to. And I think most of all, it's for the community to be able to feel like they got to meet the people who had some say so, some control and work with on a daily basis, those things that will affect them in an emergency situation in the community. And I think that that's a great thing that we can bring to them. And then we'll learn from this one and see maybe what we'd like to do with the next one. But it's a great entry level opportunity for us to do this.
No, I would just say I mean, obviously the information of what it's about, getting the word out is really important as much as we can do it. But I think also to Bob's point, what you were addressing is, from my perspective of having, I go up and I want to talk to the fire department about their table, I'll give some information. Why would I want to come and what information can I take away from talking to the companies on the table? And as you said, it's education, but it is, it's the broad. After this meeting, yes, we've got the second road advocacy, we're a source of information for that. But it's broader, that it goes into the wildfire, advocacy and protection, and as a clearinghouse of information, come back to us here. If you want to know something about what's going on, after this meeting, 3 weeks from now, you can come back to us. It doesn't have to be about the road. It's more of, that information's there as a resource. It may be, we don't have the information, that's not us, it's Firewise or whatever, but it's getting out to be known as yes, we're the advocate for the second road. That's a big thing. That's that you guys got this thing going. But it's beyond that, and that it's a resource around the around the calendar for people to come back about things going on here that are helpful.
And to address Bob specifically, another part of it is our 501c3 documents that we submitted to the feds said specifically that education and outreach was a major part of our existence, right? And so this is just it's building that political coalition. It's just bringing more people in and being empathetic and listening and being there and being like, okay, I will have a conversation with you and I will answer your questions and I'll engage with you. And that makes that makes a role.
So we're gonna have a handout, we're gonna have a postcard handout, we're gonna have popcorn machine, Matt's gonna have a 3D printer set up and be printing some little cute logo keychains for kids. We have a coloring sheet just for kids, just for kids. I can accept
Not just
big
for
kids. Okay, it's not a keychain. Well, because we kind of thought about having something cool like that just to get people to walk up to your table. It's just something fun and silly. But yeah, if anyone has any other ideas of things we could hand out, but every other county and group will be there as well with their own handout. So we can
Hazel brings up a great point because you can encourage your neighbors and friends too, that because school is out, there are activities for kids too. There'll be a coloring area and there's the popcorn. There'll be different snacks that they can have. HECO is buying sandwiches and some foods like that for people to enjoy while they're there. So there can be some kid activities as well. That will be at the Waikōloa.
So this is the third time that they've done something like this?
Third time HECO has done something like this. Kona, North Koala, and now what?
So I presume that some of the other organizations that will be here have already done those, right?
Yes, they did.
So it'd be interesting to know what they handed out and what their storytelling was. Then find a place we want to fill a gap or.
would you like to reach out to HWMO and our friends at Team Rubicon or Firewise?
Do that.
Oh, thank you, David. I would appreciate that.
Because it is a good idea, but I personally don't have the bandwidth to do it right now.
Okay.
I ran for the board like a fool, so I have a lot of emails on the Senate.
And you will be paying that.
So if you could take that on, that'd be great. We have a very short window if it's gonna be something we have to outsource.
That's the thing.
But
Just get an idea.
yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
And Firewise focus, of course, will be on home inspections, home assessments, which will be wonderful. It's another great opportunity to bring that to the community as many times.
Oh, isn't there a giveaway?
There will be a giveaway. There'll be a punch card when people arrive, and as you go around to each booth, then if you visit all of them, then you can turn that in, and there'll be a drawing for an emergency preparedness kits. Or kits, as the case may be.
We, at one point, we wanted to buy a bunch of teams. You guys remember we talked about the teams and do some kind of giveaway, but we don't have the funds right now, so maybe next year when our org is a little bit older, and we're sure we'll be able to buy a bunch of things.
Another great
raffle or
promo for.
I wrote a grant, submitted a grant for it, it just hasn't got.
I know, it's
So-
It's a great idea to say.
Matthew, she.
A ting device is a thing that you plug into your outlet and it starts to learn the natural patterns of like every time you plug in a device or turn on your microwave or whatever, there's little fluctuations in the electrical pattern. And it learns what those look like for your house. And then if anything is out of the ordinary, it'll let you know and it'll let the fire department know. And it'll let an electrician know, and they'll send out an electrician. The idea is that it's there to prevent house fires from like frayed wires or stuff like that. And a lot of insurance companies provide them for free.
State Farm's free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got it too.
Yeah.
yeah, so like, it's a thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
it's within your home. I mean, it's monitoring what's going on in your home, so something behind your wall that you don't know about is preventing.
It's literally plug it and forget it.
Yeah.
TIOG.
Reporting.
Yeah, that's great, it's awesome, and it'll inform me that the power's out before I get, you know, an email from HECO or whatever, because, you know, it's plugged into my thing, so.
Listen, I spilled coffee on my surge protector in my.
Did it freak out?
And it went nuts. Immediately, sending me reports, I was doing, this is like a year ago.
Sure.
Like, oh no.
Okay.
And Tim kept tingling
Yeah.
at my
There's,
back.
yeah, they're only $100, or your home insurance might
Great.
give that to you for free, you just have to fill out state forms.
Big
But they're fantastic little devices, so,
Yeah.
okay, anything else that we want to
Questions?
cover?
Well, related to the HECO event, I'm wondering if we should have some kind of briefing materials to hand out to people explaining what the HECO proceeding is in the piece. Because we are going to need to call upon the community to present testimony,
Let's,
and it's not far off.
So to me, that feels a little heavy for this event, but what we could do is direct people to our website and have like an information, a banner or something on our website that highlights that. But I just feel like if we're at a booth next to Hawaiian Electric or something and we're over here talking about heavy stuff like engaging with the PUC while trying to give coloring sheets, it's just like.
Well, we're gonna ask them questions
We can-
over there.
I don't know if we are, we're on a panel with everyone together, but I hear what you're saying, but we also aren't ready for that, right? So I don't know if we're gonna have people submit testimony to the PUC. I don't know if that's, we gotta talk about that later. Because Henry said that if you just submit testimony, it doesn't really matter. It's all about the intervention. So,
And the panel basically will be speaking to a lot of
yeah,
issues, but there'll also be set questions that the panel will receive in advance.
Okay.
So that you can prepare, et cetera, for that. And the reason for that is so the discussion is centered around emergency preparedness, be that wildfire or other things. For the community, and that really is what the event is.
that's fair, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious question to ask is which of those two scenarios in the HECO documents is the one they intend to pursue? The one with protection for the line here, or the one without? I mean, that's an obvious question that the community needs an answer to.
I'll work up some.
Keeping anyone from asking that question, you know, whether they're at all, it won't be asked from the stage. But there's nothing keeping anyone from asking HECO that question or any other questions they would like to ask at the HECO table, because that's when HECO will.
I will introduce you to the right people to ask that exact question to at the event, because I'm sure I know who the person to answer that question.
There's
So, and then I think that,
But to the extent we don't have an answer.
well, yeah, but I don't think we're gonna get an answer even if we send in testimony to the PUC. I don't think that would result in anything, honestly, unless we were interveners. But well, we can talk about it.
You know, what really scares me is what you were talking about, where you said if they've got the pot of money and then something happens in that 10-year window.
I know, no, that's why we want it.
Like call Lloyd's of London and you have to kick something
Oh.
if they go over their limit.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. That's what I freaked out about first. I was like, we are the ones who are sacrificing our potential payout in the
Correct.
future because we're the most likely to have this. 100%. And I really want to make sure whatever the document that they submit and the plan they come through is really solid and protects us really, really well. I just want to make sure that we actually, our voice actually gets heard in doing so. And I don't know what the right angle for that is yet.
So I think it's worthy of more conversation, but we should offline it and come up with an actual strategy and just.
We'll definitely be able to talk about this on July 9th because the PUC is not making a decision on the wildfire safety strategy document until at least August. So we will have a little bit more time at that point. And we can email and stuff in between.
And there's a little bit of a formula to get a community engagement that, I haven't figured it out yet, but if it's not till August, people will forget if we try to engage with them in June.
But I do
It's
think.
not, the timing is not right yet.
But I do think these informal conversations that we're having with HECO are important, and we can tell them, hey, these are our concerns, can you address them and that stuff? But I don't think sending, I think that HECO does not have a good reputation in the state, and if we ask people to send in testimony about something related to HECO, it's just gonna be a bunch of people yelling about, don't let us burn down. And it's not gonna have a lot of substance there unless we already came together and came up with a really solid, tight strategy. I don't think that's there yet, right? Yes, ma'am.
If he goes kind of sort of, for lack of a better term, plagiarizing or using California's, like they're adopting things that they in some way or another.
Yeah.
So if you swam enough upstream and you would look and see if there were parallels and if the PUC in California had shot them down, then we might have another angle to go.
This is a good point. I did find the most fascinating thing. It was a law review article from Santa Clara University that was titled PSPS, a danger. I'm summarizing it here.
Yeah.
A dangerous precedent. And the premise of it is that are the utilities, specifically PG&E in California, relying too much on PSPS and not making investments in their infrastructure as a result of that? Because it's so easy to just turn it off versus going underground or whatever. I'm not a I'm not a lawyer famously, so I could parse the legal argument there, but that is a good point to make and a good concern. And there are things that are happening in California, like entombing of power lines that we want to look at, which is laying them on the ground and then pouring the concrete on top of it or whatever versus digging it. All sorts of stuff there that we can look at. That may treatment.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but our situation goes far beyond that.
Oh, yes.
Because we're talking about shutting off the water, and when they shut off.
Well, sort of, right?
It's more than sort of.
Well, no, they shut it off. They shut the power off. We get half the water pressure, and they still have a couple billion gallons up there, right?
For 48 hours.
For 48 hours, right? But to that point, also, as Chief Todd has said many times, there is not enough water or enough firefighters on Earth to fight a line of style things. The point is to try and prevent it beforehand.
To fight during the 4 to 6 hours when the winds were extreme. They couldn't fight the fire line.
Right.
But once the winds died down, they spent the next 3 days fighting fires.
Sure.
But we won't have the water to do that. Because the water, if the lines go down,
right,
we don't have the water to do that.
But I think
That's a much bigger issue than just whether or not the PSPS is being used to avoid investments or preventing ignition.
Sure. I hear what you're saying. Yes, Jordan.
there was, I think it was like 2015 or something, 2017. Roger had submitted on behalf of the WBA from the Department of Water Services that when they do all the work that's supposed to be done from the earthquake that happened when they're redoing all the water up in Waimea, that we have a bona fide water line that comes down on our power line from Department of Water Services. And I don't know if he wrote a letter and said we needed to have that. This was years ago. Yeah, and they're still flailing up there. They still haven't done redone all the wells up there in Waimea. I mean, from the earthquake. It's something to talk to Nate Guitarnist about because it was supposed to be right on our power line.
Interesting.
It was supposed to be a standpipe or something that Roger said that we wanted to have that as a backup.
Well, it was the reservoir that cracked.
Correct.
And lost its ability to hold water.
But there's millions of dollars that the state was gonna give to to fix it, and I don't think they fixed it, but Roger had said, hey, look, we need something that's gonna come from there for us for water. And if it's all gonna be run by the windmills. We might have a little bit of, I mean, if they make the pipe big enough, if we need more water, I don't think they've done anything yet, but it was a request and I don't know if it got approved.
Well, I haven't seen anything, you're saying we would pipe water from Waimea to the village?
Correct, for the fire department, for the fire department.
I haven't heard about that yet. We have to-
No.
I brought it up at a meeting.
That will require some more research
I
and
brought it up,
investigation, I promise you.
I can ask Roger, and see if his status is, because he wrote the letter,
Okay. Appreciate that.
you got it.
Okay, anything else we want to talk about right now? Are we good for the day? Serena? Aslan?
No questions in chat.
Thank
Did you want to do like money update or anything? Are we good? No, we're good.
Thank you all. Take
Thank
some
you.
lines.
Please. And thank you for coming,
Thank you very
both of you
much.
guys, and thank you for that question about the road. This is the other thing, is that like, that's a demonstration of how people in the community don't know these things, and it's not your fault, right? It's you haven't presented it.
Things.
Yeah, exactly, you hear different things, and so we want to be here to help be the clarifiers and take us through these questions, so thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys. Aloha.
Yep.
Bye.
Well,
Thank you. Have a good night.